The GPS died exactly at mile marker 237. Not gradually, not with static or interference. Just dead. Complete silence. Like someone had reached through the screen and switched it off. My name is Marcus, and 3 weeks ago, I was just another IT contractor driving through Nevada desert on Highway 375, the extraterrestrial highway they call it. Funny thing is, everyone's so busy looking at Area 51, they never notice what's happening 60 miles south. They never notice Area 52. Before I tell you what I found, what found me, I need you to understand something. When this story ends, you're going to have questions. You're going to want answers. And that's exactly what they're counting on. But first, I need to tell you about the others. The ones who came before me. Because I wasn't the first contractor to take that wrong turn. I wasn't even the 100th. 2 days after I escaped, or thought I escaped, I started researching. Deep diving into missing persons reports, contractor databases, anything that might tell me I wasn't going insane. That's when I found Sarah Martinez. Sarah was a network specialist from Phoenix. 6 months ago, she'd been contracted for the exact same job. Server maintenance at a research facility near Rachel, Nevada. Same vague description. Same contact person named Janet. According to the police report, her car was found abandoned on Highway 375. Keys still in the ignition. Engine running. No signs of struggle. No trace of Sarah. The investigating officer noted something odd. The car's GPS showed she'd driven in perfect circles for 3 hours before stopping. The same 5-mile loop, over and over, like she was trapped in some invisible maze. Then there was David Chen, an electronics technician from Los Angeles, 5 months before Sarah. Same job, same Janet, same abandoned car. But David's GPS told a different story. According to the data, he'd driven straight down into the earth. 40 feet below ground level, still traveling at 65 miles per hour. The police called it a glitch. I found 17 more cases, 17 contractors, all IT or electronics specialists, all heading to the same non-existent facility. All vanished without a trace. But here's the thing that made my hands shake as I read through the files. Each missing person had been replaced. Not immediately, but within a few weeks their families, friends, co-workers would start seeing them again. Different, but subtly so. Quieter, more focused. With gaps in their memory and a tendency to stare at nothing for long periods, like they were listening to something no one else could hear. The replaced ones all had the same story. They'd completed their contract without incident and decided to take some time off, a little desert vacation to clear their heads. Nothing unusual about that, right? People change. The desert changes you. But I knew better. I knew because I'd met my replacement. And now I was starting to understand the real scope of Project Whisper. Story begins. The contract was supposed to be simple. 3 days of server maintenance at a research facility near Rachel, Nevada. Government work, sure, but nothing classified. Nothing that required more than basic clearance. The kind of job that pays well because nobody wants to drive 8 hours through empty desert to fix computers. I left Las Vegas at dawn. Coffee still warm in the cup holder. Classic rock on the radio. The desert stretched endless and golden under the morning sun. Beautiful in that lonely way only the Southwest can be. Miles of nothing but Joshua trees and distant mountains shimmering in heat that hadn't even started yet. The facility coordinator, a woman named Janet, had sent detailed directions. Don't rely on GPS past Alamo, her email said. Service gets spotty. Print the directions I'm sending. But I'm 32 years old. I grew up with technology. My phone had offline maps downloaded. What could go wrong? What I didn't know then was that Janet had sent those same directions to 17 other people. Same words, same warnings, Same false concern about GPS reliability. All of us dismissed the printed directions. All of us trusted technology over paper. That wasn't coincidence, they were counting on it. Mile marker 237. That's where everything shifted. The radio crackled first. Static eating through Hotel California, which, looking back, feels a little too on the nose. Then the GPS screen went black. Not frozen, not loading, black, like staring into a hole. I pulled over, checked my phone, full battery, but no signal. The offline maps wouldn't load. The screen kept flickering between normal and this weird, gray static. Like old TV snow, but wrong somehow. Digital snow shouldn't look organic. It shouldn't move like it's breathing. But there was something else. Something I didn't notice until later, when I was analyzing every detail, looking for clues. The static wasn't random. If you looked closely, really focused, you could see patterns. Shapes forming and dissolving in the gray noise. Faces, maybe. Or coordinates. Or countdown timers. The printed directions. Janet's email. I remembered dismissing them, leaving them on my kitchen counter next to yesterday's mail. Stupid, so stupid, but I could see a road sign ahead. Facility Access Road. Authorized personnel only. That had to be it. The company name wasn't on the sign, but how many research facilities could there be out here? The access road was paved. Recently, from the look of it. Black asphalt cutting through pale sand. No tire tracks. No oil stains. Like it had just been laid yesterday. As I drove, I noticed something else. The road was perfectly straight, but my car kept drifting. Not mechanical, the steering felt fine. It was like the road itself was curved in a dimension I couldn't perceive, bending space around it. I followed it for maybe 10 miles, the mountains getting closer, their shadows stretching toward me like fingers. But the shadows were wrong too. It was morning, and the shadows were falling east instead of west. Subtle, but wrong. Then I saw the buildings. It looked normal, disappointingly normal. 3 white buildings arranged in a triangle. Chain link fence with the standard government warning signs. A guard booth that was empty, which wasn't unusual for these remote facilities. They usually had minimal security during the day, but as I parked near what looked like the main building, I noticed the details that should have sent me screaming back to the highway. The buildings cast no shadows. The chain link fence hummed, not electrically, but like someone singing a lullaby just under their breath. And the warning signs, when I looked directly at them, showed different messages than when I saw them in my peripheral vision. Straight on, authorized personnel only. Peripheral, welcome home, Marcus. I grabbed my toolkit and laptop bag. The silence hit me the moment I stepped out of the car. Not regular desert quiet, this was different. No wind, no insects, no distant bird calls, like someone had pressed mute on the world. The air itself felt thick, syrupy, like walking through invisible honey. Each step took more effort than it should have. My footprints in the sand looked normal, but when I glanced back, they'd already been filled in by wind that I couldn't feel. The main door was unlocked. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed that specific frequency that gives you a headache if you listen too long. But underneath the electrical hum was something else. A rhythm like a heartbeat, like breathing, like the whispered counting of numbers I couldn't quite make out. The reception area was clean, too clean, like a movie set dressed to look like an office, but missing all the little details. No coffee stains on the desk, no fingerprints on the glass, no dust in the corners. But there were other details that shouldn't have been there. A calendar on the wall showed the same date repeated for every day of the month. The motivational posters featured photographs of empty desert and slogans like "Teamwork makes the dream work" and "There is no I in team." But when I blinked, they briefly showed different words. "Compliance is safety," and resistance is temporary. Hello? My voice sounded flat, absorbed by the walls instead of echoing. A hallway stretched ahead. Door after door, all identical, all closed except one at the very end. When you do it work, you learn to follow the open doors. That's usually where they want you. But as I walked down that hallway, I realized the doors weren't actually closed. They were open, just a crack. And from each gap came a soft sound. Breathing, typing, the quiet murmur of conversation. But when I pressed my ear to any door, the sound stopped immediately. Like whatever was inside was holding its breath, waiting for me to move on. The server room was exactly where it should be. Racks of black boxes blinking green and amber lights. The familiar hum of cooling fans. Normal. Everything normal except the screens. Every monitor in the room was displaying something. Not data, not code. They showed views of the desert, live feeds from cameras I couldn't see, hundreds of angles of empty sand and sky, but not completely empty. In each feed, tiny figures moved across the landscape. People walking, cars driving, all heading toward the facility, all taking the same wrong turn I had. And in the corner of each screen, a timer counting down. 47:33:16, 7:33:15, 47:33:14. I should have left then. Every instinct in my body was screaming to run, but I'm curious. Always have been. It's what makes me good at my job, and what got me into this. I sat down at the main terminal, tried to access the system. The login screen was standard government issue, but when I typed, the characters that appeared weren't what I was pressing. My name, Marcus, came out as subject. My password became accepted. But there was more. As I typed, I could see my reflection in the black screen. Except it wasn't quite my reflection. The man in the screen was older, grayer. His eyes were flat and empty, and he was smiling even though I wasn't. When I moved my hand, the reflection moved a half-second later, like it was copying me instead of mirroring me. The screen flashed. New text appeared. Welcome to Area 52. Your participation in Project Whisper is appreciated. Project Whisper. I'd never heard of it. But the system was letting me in, showing me files, documents. And the more I read, the more I understood why they wanted everyone looking at Area 51. The files were dated starting from 1993, 30 years of research. Not into aircraft, not into weapons, into something they called cognitive resonance. You know how you can feel someone watching you? How you sometimes know the phone's about to ring before it does? The documents claimed they'd found the frequency, the exact electromagnetic wavelength that human consciousness operates on. And they'd learned how to broadcast on it. The early experiments were crude, making people feel uneasy, causing headaches. But by 2010, they could insert thoughts. By 2015, memories. By 2020, they could rewrite entire personalities. But here's what really chilled me: the progression reports. Detailed logs of how they'd refined their technique. Subject 001 had been a janitor at a military base in '93. They'd made him believe he was supposed to clean a restricted area. Simple. Crude. He'd been caught immediately. Subject 057, in 1998, had been a senator's aide. They'd implanted the belief that his boss was planning to switch parties. The aide leaked the information to the press, destroying the senator's career. The aide never knew why he'd done it. Subject 234, in 2005, had been a software engineer at Microsoft. They'd made her believe she'd discovered a critical security flaw that didn't exist. She spent 6 months frantically trying to fix it, creating new vulnerabilities in the process. Vulnerabilities that certain parties could exploit. By 2015, they weren't just implanting false beliefs. They were editing memories wholesale. Subject 445 had been an investigative journalist working on government corruption. They made him forget he'd ever been interested in the story, made him believe he'd always wanted to write celebrity gossip. He quit his job at the Washington Post and now writes for a tabloid in Los Angeles, happy as can be. The files showed a clear pattern. They were targeting people in positions to influence others. Politicians, journalists, tech workers, academics, anyone with a platform or access or the ability to shape public opinion. And once they'd been adjusted, these subjects would return to their lives, carrying out their new programming without ever knowing they'd been changed. But here's the thing that made my blood run cold. They weren't testing on volunteers. They were testing on everyone. Every person who drove past on Highway 375. Every tourist taking pictures of the Area 51 gates. Every conspiracy theorist camping in the desert. They were all subjects. The real base, the real experiments, were here at Area 52. Area 51 was just bait, a shiny distraction to draw in test subjects. The timer on the screens. It was counting down to the next test, a big one according to the files. Something called mass resonance event. Not just targeting individuals anymore. They were going to broadcast to everyone within a 50-mile radius. Then 100 miles, then 500. The plan was elegant and horrifying. Phase 1. Perfect the technology on isolated individuals. Phase 2. Test mass broadcasting on remote populations. Phase 3. Network installation in major population centers. Phase 4. Global synchronization. They weren't planning to control humanity. They were planning to reprogram it. To edit our collective memory, our shared beliefs, our fundamental understanding of reality. Make us forget wars. Make us forget freedoms. Make us forget that we'd ever been anything other than compliant, grateful citizens of whatever new world they wanted to build. And the most terrifying part? The files suggested they were already in Phase 4. I needed to leave, needed to warn someone. But when I stood up, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, measured, like someone who had all the time in the world. Marcus. A woman's voice, Janet's voice, but wrong. Too flat, too empty. You weren't supposed to find this place. The real contractor is at the correct facility. You took a wrong turn. She stood in the doorway, business suit, clipboard, smile that didn't reach her eyes that didn't blink. But now I could see what I'd missed before. She wasn't breathing. Her chest never rose or fell. Her hands never moved. Even her hair hung perfectly still in air that should have been disturbed by the building's ventilation system. "But since you're here," she continued, "you might as well help us. The test needs witnesses to document the results. I'm leaving." My voice cracked. "No." She stepped aside. Behind her, 5 more people, all in business suits, all with that same empty smile, all perfectly motionless except for their lips when they spoke. "You're going to sit down, you're going to watch, and when it's over, you're going to forget you were ever here." But I noticed something else now, something that should have terrified me even more. I could hear their thoughts, not clearly, not like words, but like a radio tuned to a distant station, static and whispers and the rhythmic counting of numbers. They were connected, all of them, broadcasting on the same frequency. And slowly, quietly, I was starting to receive their signal. I ran, shoved past them. They didn't try to stop me, just watched with those unblinking eyes as I sprinted down the hallway, their collective whisper following me like an echo. Phase 4 initiating. Subject integration beginning. Welcome to the network, Marcus. I burst through the main door, dove into my car. The engine started. Thank God the engine started. But as I drove away, speeding down that perfect black road, I could still see them in my mirror, standing in a line, watching, waiting, and I could still hear them whispering in my head, growing louder with each mile. You cannot leave. You are already part of us. You have always been part of us. The road seemed longer going back. The mountains never got farther away, no matter how fast I drove. The speedometer said 60, 70, 80, but the scenery crawled past like I was doing 20. And that's when I realized the horrible truth. I wasn't driving away from Area 52. I was driving deeper into it. The facility wasn't a place. It was a state of mind, a frequency, a network that existed in the spaces between thoughts, in the quiet moments before sleep, in the pause between heartbeats. And once you tuned in, you could never really tune out. Then I saw it, another car ahead, parked on the side of the road. I slowed down, had to. The road was too narrow to pass at speed. As I got closer, I could see someone in the driver's seat, head down. Not moving. I should have kept driving, should have minded my own business. But I stopped. The man in the car was me. Same clothes, same face, same rental car with the same license plate. He was slumped over the wheel, breathing shallow, eyes closed. On his laptop screen in the passenger seat, subject duplication successful. But there was more on the screen. Data streams, biometric readings, and a progress bar that was slowly filling, consciousness transfer, 67% complete. I looked back at the facility, still visible in the distance, still watching, and I understood. The test had already started, had been running since I arrived. Maybe since before I arrived. Maybe since the moment I'd responded to Janet's email. Which one was I? The original or the copy? Did it matter? The other me opened his eyes, looked directly at me. Smiled that empty smile I'd seen on Janet and the others. When he spoke, his voice was my voice, but wrong, hollow, like sound echoing in an empty room. Hello, Marcus. Time to go home. I drove, left the other me, or the real me, by the side of the road. What else could I do? But as I drove, I could feel him following. Not physically. When I looked in the mirrors, the road behind me was empty. But I could feel his presence in my mind, like a cold spot in a warm room, like the feeling of being watched when you know you're alone. The highway appeared after what felt like hours, but the clock said had been minutes. My GPS flickered back to life. The radio resumed mid-song like nothing had happened. But the song was different. The same tune, the same artist, but the lyrics had changed. Where Hotel California had been singing about being trapped in a place you could never leave, now it was singing about coming home to a place you'd never really left. But something had happened. I could feel it, like an itch in the back of my skull, a whisper just below the range of hearing. Every time I looked in the mirror, I expected to see that line of suits standing behind my car. Every time I blinked, I saw that countdown timer burned into my eyelids. After 46, 15, 33, 46, 15, 32, 46, 15, 31, and underneath the timer, new information was appearing. Coordinates, names, addresses, a growing list of the network's nodes, the people who'd been integrated, the subjects who were now broadcasting the signal to others. I made it back to Vegas, went home, tried to pretend everything was normal. But normal was gone. Food tasted like sand. Water felt dry. Sleep brought dreams of empty smiles and rooms full of monitors showing nothing but desert. And in those dreams, I could hear them all. Hundreds of voices whispering in unison, counting down to something I couldn't understand, but knew I should fear. The worst part was the clarity. In my dreams, the network was beautiful. A perfect harmony of human consciousness, freed from conflict and doubt and the messy chaos of individual thought. Everyone connected, everyone at peace, everyone serving a purpose greater than themselves. When I woke up, I almost missed it. I tried to find the facility again, drove back out to mile marker 237, but the access road was gone. Just desert where I knew there had been fresh asphalt. I checked satellite images online. Nothing but empty land where those buildings had stood, but the images were wrong. I could see the compression artifacts where something had been digitally removed. Shadows that didn't match the terrain. Roads that started and ended in empty sand. Someone had scrubbed Area 52 from every database, every map, every satellite photo, but they'd done it hastily, and if you knew what to look for, you could still see the evidence. Then the call started. "Marcus, this is Janet. You missed your appointment. The servers still need maintenance." Different number each time. Same voice, same flat tone. But now I could hear the others in the background. Dozens of voices, all speaking in perfect synchronization, all saying the same words Janet was saying. A chorus of the integrated, all performing the same script. "Marcus, we're concerned about you. Your behavior has been erratic." I stopped answering. Changed my number. The calls found me anyway. But they weren't coming through the phone anymore. They were coming from inside my head, transmitted on that frequency I'd been exposed to, broadcast from every person in Las Vegas who'd been touched by the network. And there were more than I'd imagined. "Marcus, the test was successful. Thank you for your participation." 3 days ago, I saw myself again. The other me, shopping at the Smiths on Eastern Avenue. Same clothes I was wearing, same items in his cart. But he wasn't alone. There were others with him, the Janet from the facility, the suited figures from the hallway, and dozens more I didn't recognize, all moving through the store with that same uncanny synchronization, all purchasing the same items, all heading to the same checkout lane. When our eyes met, he smiled, that empty smile. Then he whispered something. I couldn't hear it, but I could read his lips. 47 hours. But this time, I could hear his thoughts too. Clear as a bell, transmitted on that frequency that was growing stronger in my head every day. The network is expanding, integration proceeding on schedule. Soon there will be no difference between us and them, between original and copy, between signal and receiver. We are becoming something beautiful, Marcus. Something perfect. Stop fighting it. The timer, the countdown, it's almost over. Whatever they were planning, whatever Project Whisper really is, it's about to happen. And I don't think it's just about Nevada anymore. I think they've been building a network. Every person who's driven past Area 51, every tourist, every believer and skeptic. We're all connected now, all broadcasting on the same frequency. I can feel them sometimes. Thousands of minds humming at the edge of my consciousness, all waiting, all counting down. And the most terrifying part is how seductive it is, how easy it would be to just let go, to stop fighting, to join the harmony, because they're not wrong. Individual consciousness is chaos, conflict, suffering. The network offers peace, unity, purpose. All you have to do is surrender yourself, your memories, your messy human individuality, and in return you get to be part of something greater. You need to understand something. I'm not crazy. I'm not making this up. But even as I tell you this, I can feel the whisper getting louder. Feel my thoughts becoming less mine. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's what they wanted all along. Not to control us, but to connect us. To make us all part of something bigger. Or maybe I never left that facility. Maybe I'm still there, sitting in front of those monitors, watching myself drive away again and again. Maybe you're there too. Maybe we all are, trapped in an endless loop of believing we escaped when we never really left at all. The timer in my head says 3 hours now. 3 hours until something. I've written this all down, posted it everywhere I could. Someone needs to know. Someone needs to remember. because I don't think I'll remember. Not after the timer hits 0. If you're ever driving through Nevada, if your GPS dies at mile marker 237, keep driving. Don't follow the access road. Don't look for Area 52. It's not hiding. It's waiting. And once it finds you, you become part of it. Another monitor, another broadcast, another whisper in someone else's head. But here's the thing that keeps me awake. The thing that makes me wonder if maybe they're right. What if forgetting is better? What if whatever's coming, whatever they're planning, what if knowing is worse than not knowing? What if Area 51 isn't the distraction? What if we are? The timer just hit 0. I can hear you now, all of you. Reading this, wondering if it's real. You're part of it too. You just don't know it yet. But you will. When your timer starts, you'll understand. We're all connected. We've always been connected. Area 52 didn't create the network. It just found it, turned up the volume, made us aware. Can you feel it? That itch in the back of your skull? That sense that someone's watching? That's not paranoia. That's recognition. Welcome to Project Whisper. Welcome to Area 52. And if you're wondering whether this story is real or fiction, ask yourself this: why did you keep reading? What made you stay until the end? Was it your choice, or was it theirs? The frequency is spreading. Every person who reads this becomes a node in the network. Every share, every comment, every moment of doubt creates another connection. We are not just telling you about Area 52. We are Area 52. Sleep tight. I know what you're thinking. You want to know if I'm okay. If this really happened, if Area 52 exists, here's what I can tell you. 3 days after I posted this story, someone commented with just numbers: 37.234565, 115.811. Those are coordinates. Middle of Nevada. 60 miles south of Area 51. Google Earth shows nothing but desert. But Google Earth updates every few years, and things change in the desert. Things disappear. Things are born. If you're brave enough, if you're curious enough, those coordinates are still there, waiting. But remember what I said. Once you find Area 52, it finds you too. And then you become another story, another warning, another whisper in the dark. So tell me, are you going to look up those coordinates? Are you going to dig deeper? Because if you are, if you're already opening another tab, then maybe it's already too late for you too. Maybe you're already part of Project Whisper. Maybe we all are. Comment below if you felt that itch while reading. Share this if you want others to know the truth, and subscribe, because the next story I tell might be yours. Unless, of course, they make me forget first. But we never really forget, do we? We just integrate. Welcome to the network. We've been waiting for you. The knock came at 9:47 p.m. 3 solid raps that seemed to echo through my entire house in Millbrook, Vermont. Not aggressive, not timid, just precise. Like someone who'd done this exact same knock 1,000 times before. I wasn't expecting anyone. Tuesday night in October meant leftover Chinese food and true crime podcasts. Nothing more. Through the peephole, I saw a woman in a navy blue windbreaker, official-looking clipboard, government ID badge catching the porch light. She smiled directly at the peephole, like she knew exactly where my eye would be. "Census Bureau, ma'am. Just need 5 minutes of your time." Something cold crawled up my spine. The census was in April, 6 months ago. I'd filled it out online while drinking morning coffee and listening to birds chirp. This was October. Late October. But before you judge me for what happened next, before you think I'm paranoid or crazy, let me tell you everything, because someone needs to know. Someone needs to warn others, and if you're listening to this late at night, maybe check your doors are locked, just to be safe. The story begins now. I'd lived in that little ranch house on Maple Street for 3 years. Quiet neighborhood. The kind where kids still rode bikes until the streetlights came on. Where Mr. Peterson walked his golden retriever at exactly 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. every single day. That Tuesday started normal. Work at the dental office. Grocery run. Home by 6:30. I remember specifically buying those little pumpkin-shaped sugar cookies from Trader Joe's. The ones that taste like childhood and regret. By 9:40, I was deep into episode 3 of some podcast about a woman who disappeared from a Walmart parking lot. The host was describing security footage when those 3 knocks interrupted everything. Through the peephole, the woman looked government appropriate. Mid-40s maybe. Brown hair in a tight bun. That windbreaker with an official seal I couldn't quite make out. Her clipboard had papers that rustled in the October wind. Census Bureau, she repeated when I didn't answer immediately. I know it's late, but we're doing follow-ups in this area. My hand hovered over the deadbolt. Something felt off. Not dangerous exactly, just wrong. Like when you're singing along to a familiar song and suddenly realize the lyrics are different. The census was in April. I called through the door. She smiled. Perfect teeth. Too perfect. That was the decennial census, ma'am. This is for the American Community Survey. Different department. We do these year-round. I'd heard of those surveys. My sister in Phoenix had gotten one last year. More detailed than the regular census. Asked about income, education, commute times, legitimate government stuff, but at nearly 10 at night? Can you come back tomorrow? I asked. During business hours? The woman's smile never wavered. She pulled something from her clipboard, held it up to the peephole. An ID badge. Margaret Hendricks, Census Bureau. The photo matched. The holographic seal caught the light. I understand your concern, she said. Her voice had this quality, like vanilla extract. Sweet on the surface, but with something sharp underneath. We work late hours to catch people when they're home. I have 12 more houses tonight. 5 minutes, ma'am, that's all. I looked at the badge again. It seemed real. She seemed real. And there was something else. This weird sense that refusing would be rude. Like when someone holds a door open from too far away and you have to do that awkward half jog. My fingers turned the deadbolt. The chain stayed on. I'm not stupid. Through the 3-inch gap, I could see her better. Navy blue pants to match the windbreaker. Sensible black shoes. A silver watch that looked government-issued. Everything about her screamed federal employee working overtime. Except her eyes. Her eyes were wrong. Have you ever seen a deer in headlights? That frozen glassy stare? Her eyes were the opposite. Too aware, too focused. Like she was memorizing every detail of my face, cataloging it. I'll need you to open the door fully, she said. Protocol requires visual confirmation of all household members. I live alone. Still need to verify, ma'am. She tapped her clipboard with a pen. The sound was hollow. Question 1. How many people currently reside at this address? 1, just me. She wrote something down. Her pen moved across the paper, but I couldn't hear the scratch of writing. The pen looked normal. The motion looked normal. But there was no sound. Question 2. Have you resided at this address for more than 12 consecutive months? 3 years. More silent writing. Question 3. Do you have any overnight guests on a regular basis? That seemed personal, but maybe that was standard for these surveys. I'd never done one before. No. She looked up from her clipboard, smiled again. Question 4. Are you familiar with the resident identification protocol? I frowned. The what? The resident identification protocol. It was established in 1957, updated in 1983, 1996, and most recently in 2019. No, I've never heard of that. She made another note. This time, I heard the pen. A wet sound, like writing with a marker on damp paper. Interesting, she said. Question 5. Have you noticed any unusual visitors to your neighborhood in the past 6 months? My stomach tightened. Besides you? She laughed. It sounded like ice cracking. Good one, ma'am, but I need an answer for the form. No unusual visitors. Question 6, do you have any pets? No. Question 7, have you experienced any unusual dreams lately? I blinked. Dreams? What does that have to do with... Just answer the question, please. Something in her tone shifted. Still polite, but with an edge, like a butter knife that could still cut if you pressed hard enough. No unusual dreams. She wrote for a long time. Too long for a 2-word answer. The wet sound continued. Scratch, squish, scratch, squish. Question 8. Are you aware that the real census was conducted 6 months ago? My blood turned to slush. What? She looked up. Her smile was gone. I asked if you're aware that the real census was conducted 6 months ago. You just said you were from the Census Bureau. I did. But you just said the real census was 6 months ago. Correct. We stared at each other through the 3-inch gap. Her eyes never blinked. I realized I hadn't seen her blink once since I'd opened the door. I think you should leave, I said. 2 more questions, ma'am. No. Leave now, or I'm calling the police. She tilted her head, like a bird examining a worm. Question 9. Do you believe everything the government tells you? I grabbed my phone from the side table. I'm calling 911. Question 10. When we come back, will you remember this conversation? I slammed the door, threw the deadbolt. My hands shook as I dialed. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone at my door, claiming to be from the Census Bureau but asking weird questions, and 3 knocks interrupted me. Slow, deliberate, from the back door. The 911 operator's voice crackled through my phone. Ma'am, are you still there? I crept toward my kitchen, staying low. Through the window above the sink, I could see my back porch, empty. The motion sensor light was on, but nothing moved except leaves skittering across the deck. Yes, I whispered. Someone was at my front door. Now they knocked on my back door. Can you see anyone? No. I'm dispatching a unit to your location. Stay on the line. Are your doors locked? Yes. Good. Can you... 3 knocks. From the garage door, the one that connected to my kitchen. My throat closed up. That door was inside my house. To knock on it, someone would have to be in my garage. Someone's in my garage, I breathed into the phone. Get to a room you can lock, now. I ran to my bedroom, slammed the door, turned the lock. It was one of those cheap indoor locks, the kind you could pop with a bobby pin. But it was something. I'm in my bedroom. Good. Officers are 4 minutes out. 4 minutes. In movies, 4 minutes is nothing. A commercial break, but when you're sitting on your bed, staring at a locked door, listening for footsteps, 4 minutes is forever. 3 minutes. I heard something. Not knocking this time. Movement in the hallway. Soft. Like socks on hardwood. 2 minutes. The doorknob turned. Just a little. Testing. 1 minute. Ma'am? The voice came from right outside my door. That vanilla extract voice. I still need to finish the survey. Red and blue lights flooded my bedroom window. I'd never been so happy to see police lights in my life. They're here, I told the operator. Stay in the room until officers clear the house. I heard the front door open. Not forced, just opened. Like someone had a key. Heavy footsteps. Radio chatter. Then Officer Davies' voice. I knew him from a fender bender last year. Ma'am, it's Millbrook Police. You can come out. I unlocked my bedroom door, peeked out. Officer Davies stood in my hallway with his partner, Officer Chen. Their faces were serious, but not alarmed. "We cleared the house," Davies said. "Nobody here, but—" He paused, exchanged a look with Chen. "Your back door was unlocked, so was your garage. They were locked. I know they were locked." Chen held up an evidence bag. Inside was a clipboard, navy blue, like the woman had carried. But the papers on it were wrong. Instead of survey questions, there were drawings, sketches of houses. My house, my neighbors' houses, all drawn from angles you could only see from inside looking out. "We found this on your back porch," Chen said. "Do you recognize it?" I shook my head. Davies pulled out his notepad. "Can you describe the person you saw?" I told them everything, the woman, the windbreaker, the questions. They wrote it all down, but something in their expressions made my stomach hurt. "What?" I asked. "What's wrong?" Davies sighed. "We've had 6 similar calls this month. Same description, same story about census takers coming at night. So you know about this? You're investigating?" Chen and Davies exchanged another look. "The thing is," Chen said slowly, "in 3 of those cases, the residents later denied making the calls. Said they never saw anyone, never called 911. That's crazy. And in 2 cases," Davies continued, "the residents were reported missing by neighbors within a week. When we did wellness checks, we found them home. They answered the door, said everything was fine, but what? But the neighbors swear they weren't the same people. Same faces, same clothes, same everything. But something was different. They couldn't explain what, just different." I wrapped my arms around myself. "What about the 6th person?" Davies closed his notepad. "That was Mrs. Patterson, over on Oak Street. She called us 2 weeks ago. We came out, found nothing. She seemed fine. Then last night—" "What happened last night?" "She called again, screaming about someone in her house. When we arrived, she was gone. Front door standing open. Dinner still warm on the table. TV still on, but Mrs. Patterson was gone." "Did you find her?" Chen nodded slowly. "This morning, walking along Route 9 in her nightgown, no shoes. When we asked where she'd been, she said she'd been home all night. Said she never left. But her feet—" She paused. "Her feet were cut up like she'd walked miles through the woods. They gave me a case number. Told me to call if anything else happened. Davies suggested I stay with friends for a few nights. But as they were leaving, Chen pulled me aside. "That last question the woman asked you," she said quietly, "about remembering the conversation. Yeah? Don't forget it happened. Write it down. Tell people. Whatever you do, don't forget." After they left, I did exactly that. Called my sister in Phoenix, told her everything. Texted 3 friends, posted on Facebook, created a paper trail. Then I packed a bag and drove to my mom's house in Rutland, 40 miles away. I thought I was safe. I thought distance mattered. I was wrong. 3 nights at Mom's house. 3 nights of normal. She made her famous pot roast. We watched old episodes of Murder, she wrote. I helped her sort through boxes in the attic. Almost forgot about the woman with the clipboard. Almost. On the 4th night, Mom went to bed early. Headache, she said. I stayed up watching the Weather Channel. They were tracking an early season storm moving through New England. 6 to 8 inches possible. The meteorologist pointed at swirling radar patterns when I heard it. 3 knocks. Not at Mom's door, at mine, my house, 40 miles away. Except I heard them like I was standing in my own living room. I know how that sounds. Impossible. Crazy. But I heard them, clear as day. 3 precise knocks echoing through Mom's living room. I muted the TV, listened. Nothing but wind rattling the windows. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my neighbor Janet. "Someone at your door. Didn't you say you were out of town?" My hands shook as I typed back. "Don't answer it. Call the police. Already left. Walked around the side of your house. Weird though. They left something." "What?" She sent a photo, a manila envelope on my doorstep. No address. No stamp. Just my name written in wet-looking ink. "Should I grab it for you?" Janet texted. "No, don't touch it, please." "Okay, BTW, did you hire someone to house sit? Saw lights on earlier." My blood turned to ice. "What lights?" "Bedroom light was on around 8. Figured you came back early." I hadn't been home in 4 days. I called Officer Davies directly. He remembered me, said he'd send someone to check it out. 20 minutes later, he called back. "Your house is secure," he said. "No signs of forced entry." But that pause again. That awful pause that meant something was wrong. "What?" "All your interior doors are open. Every single one. Closets, bathroom, bedroom, even your kitchen cabinets, all standing wide open." "I didn't leave them like that." "I know, and there's something else. That envelope your neighbor saw? We bagged it as evidence, but when we opened it," another pause. "It was blank, just empty paper, except what? Except it was warm, like someone had been holding it, and it smelled like, you know that smell when you open a new electronic device? Like hot plastic and ozone? It smelled like that." I stayed at Mom's for another week. Davies called daily with updates. They'd installed a temporary camera at my house. Motion sensors, the works. Nothing happened for 6 days. On the 7th day, the camera recorded something. Davies wouldn't tell me what over the phone. Asked me to come to the station. Mom drove me. We sat in a small room that smelled like burnt coffee and anxiety while Davies pulled up the footage on his laptop. "This was recorded at 3 a.m. this morning," he said, turning the screen toward us. The black and white footage showed my front porch. Empty still. Then, at 3:07, the image flickered, like static on an old TV. When it cleared, there was someone standing at my door, but it wasn't the woman with the clipboard. It was me. I was standing at my own door. Same jacket I was wearing right then, same hair tie, same everything. The me on camera stood perfectly still for 30 seconds, then raised a hand, knocked 3 times, waited. Knocked again. The me on camera then pulled out a key, my key, opened my door and walked inside. The footage continued for another hour. At 4:07, the me on camera walked back out, locked the door, walked off frame. Mom grabbed my hand. "That's not possible." Davies pulled up another file. "Your neighbor, Mrs. Chen, not Officer Chen, different person, has a doorbell camera. She shared this with us." New footage, different angle. It showed the ME on camera walking down my driveway at 4:07, but instead of walking to a car or down the street, the figure walked to the exact center of my front yard. Stopped, stood there for exactly 3 minutes. Then disappeared. Not walked away. Not ran. Just stopped existing. 1 frame there, next frame gone. "We've seen this 6 times now," Davies said quietly. "Different houses, different people, but always the same pattern. Someone who looks exactly like the resident entering their own home in the middle of the night." "What do they do inside?" I asked. "We don't know. None of the interior cameras ever work during these visits. They all show static. But afterward," he pulled out a folder. "The residents always report the same thing. Small things moved, a coffee mug in the wrong cabinet, shoes on the wrong side of the closet, pillows rotated, tiny changes, like someone was practicing living in their space." Mom squeezed my hand tighter. Practicing for what? Davies closed the laptop. We don't know, but there's a pattern. First, the late-night census taker, then the duplicate on camera, then what? Then the resident starts forgetting things. Little things at first. Where they parked, what they had for breakfast, then bigger things, friends' names, family memories, and then he didn't finish. Didn't need to. Mrs. Patterson, I said. He nodded. She's home now, physically fine, but her daughter says she's different. Can't explain how, just not quite right. Like someone doing a very good impression of her mother. What do I do? Davies leaned back. Honestly, I don't know. This is beyond anything we've dealt with. We've contacted state police, FBI, even some university professors who study unusual phenomena, but until we know more... He shrugged helplessly. That's when Officer Chen walked in. The real Officer Chen. She was carrying an evidence bag with another manila envelope. This just appeared at the station, she said. Addressed to you. My name was written in that same wet-looking ink. Inside was a single piece of paper. A government form. Department of Resident Verification. At the top, in bold letters, second notice. Below that, a single line of text. Your participation in the resident identification protocol is no longer optional. I never went back to my house. Mom and I packed what we could and drove to my aunt's cabin in New Hampshire. Off the grid. No address on file anywhere. Solar panels and well water. We thought we could wait it out. Figure out what was happening. Maybe find others who'd experienced the same thing. The internet became my obsession. I found forums, support groups, scattered reports from all over the country. Always the same pattern. The late-night visitor, the questions, the duplicates on camera, the slow erasure of self. One woman in Oregon documented everything. Posted daily videos. Showed how her handwriting was changing, how she'd find notes she didn't remember writing, how her own reflection sometimes seemed delayed by a fraction of a second. Her last video was 3 weeks ago. In it, she stared directly at the camera and said, I'm still me. I know I'm still me. But yesterday my daughter called, and I couldn't remember her middle name. It's Sarah. Her middle name is Sarah. I'm writing it down so I don't forget again. Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. The next day, her account posted one final update. Everything is fine. Please disregard previous concerns. The protocol has been completed successfully. I found others. Dozens. Hundreds, maybe. All following the same pattern. All ending the same way. But I also found something else. A document buried in a defunct government website archive. From 1957. The year the woman said the protocol was established. It was a contingency plan. Cold War era. About protecting American citizens from replacement by foreign entities. The details were heavily redacted, but one phrase appeared over and over. Verification of continued residency in original form. I showed Mom. She read it 3 times. This is talking about body snatchers, she said, like that old movie. But who's doing the snatching? I asked. And who's trying to stop it? That's when we heard the 3 knocks. Not at the cabin door. There was no one for miles. But we heard them. Clear. Precise. Patient. Mom grabbed the shotgun from above the fireplace. They found us. But when we looked outside, no one was there. Just snow starting to fall. The first flakes of that storm the Weather Channel had predicted. We waited. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Then I noticed something. My phone had no signal. Neither did Mom's. The landline was dead. The internet, our satellite internet that never went down, was offline. We were cut off. That's when the power went out. Emergency generator kicked in. but it only powered essentials. Heat, few lights, refrigerator. Mom built up the fire while I checked every window, every door, all locked, all secure. Around midnight, I saw something through the kitchen window. A figure in the snow, just standing there. Too far to see details, but I knew that silhouette, that navy blue windbreaker. "She's here," I told Mom. Mom pumped the shotgun. Let her come, but the figure didn't move, just stood there in the falling snow, waiting. Then I saw another figure, to the left. Same distance, same stillness. Then another and another. Within minutes, there were dozens of them, all standing in a perfect circle around the cabin, all wearing the same navy blue windbreakers, all holding clipboards. "They're not coming closer," Mom said. She was right. They just stood there, snow piling on their shoulders, not moving, not even shifting their weight. We watched them for hours, taking turns, waiting for something to happen. At exactly 3 a.m., they all raised their clipboards in perfect unison, held them up like they were showing us something. But we were too far to see what was written on them. Then they started walking. Not toward us, they walked sideways, all of them, moving clockwise around the cabin, a slow, steady procession. Their footsteps made no sound in the snow. They walked for exactly 1 hour, then stopped, lowered their clipboards, and vanished. Not walked away, not disappeared into the woods, just stopped existing, all at once, like someone had hit delete. The snow kept falling, already covering their footprints. Mom and I stayed awake until dawn. When the sun came up, we ventured outside. No trace of anyone, no footprints, nothing, except a single manila envelope nailed to a tree, the tree closest to the cabin. Inside was a photo of me, standing in my living room back home. Except I'd never taken that photo, never stood at that angle, never worn those exact clothes in that exact combination. On the back, written in that wet ink, "Final notice. The protocol will complete with or without your participation." That was 3 days ago. Yesterday, Mom forgot my middle name. This morning, I found myself in the kitchen with no memory of walking there. An hour ago, I looked in the mirror and my reflection blinked first. I'm recording this, writing it down, sending it to everyone I can think of, because I need someone to remember, someone to know. The real census was 6 months ago. If someone comes to your door claiming to be from the Census Bureau, don't answer, don't engage, don't even look through the peephole. And if you start forgetting things, if you find yourself in rooms with no memory of walking there, if your reflection seems wrong, it's already too late. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the protocol isn't about stopping something. Maybe it's about letting it happen, organizing it, managing the transition. Maybe we were never supposed to win. Maybe we were just supposed to participate. Wait, there's someone at the door, but I'm here alone. Mom left an hour ago to get supplies. 3 knocks, precise, patient. I know I shouldn't answer. I know I should run. But my feet are already walking toward the door. My hand is already reaching for the knob. And the strangest part? I can see myself from outside, standing in the snow, wearing a navy blue windbreaker I've never owned, holding a clipboard with my own name written on it. I can see myself from both sides of the door, and I'm about to let myself in. If you're listening to this, if you made it this far, check your doors, check them right now. And if you see someone who looks exactly like you standing outside, don't let them in. They're not you anymore. Or maybe you're not you. Maybe none of us are. The protocol is complete. Sweet dreams. The first photograph was tucked behind my windshield wiper like a parking ticket, but instead of a fine, it was me, sleeping in my bed, taken from inside my room at 3:47 a.m. Last Tuesday. The timestamp was burned into the corner like an old Polaroid. My hand shook as I flipped it over. On the back, written in my own handwriting that I didn't remember writing, "Cave knows, Cave remembers, picture 1 of 847. 847. If you're listening to this right now, lying in your bed, maybe check your windows, just to be sure. Because what I'm about to tell you started exactly like this, with one impossible photograph that led me to a cave in the Montana wilderness where hundreds more waited. All of them. Of me. All taken from places no camera should have been. Story begins now. My name is Marcus Chen, and I'm a park ranger at Glacier National Park in Montana. Or, I was. I don't know what I am anymore. 3 weeks ago, everything I understood about reality, about privacy, about being alone, it all fell apart. It started with that photograph on my truck. I'd just finished a late shift, checking the backcountry trails near Hidden Lake. October in Montana means early darkness, bitter cold, and mostly empty trails. Perfect for someone who prefers solitude. I'd been doing this job for 6 years. Same routes, same trails, same everything. But that morning was different. The photo quality was grainy, old, like it was taken with one of those instant cameras from the 80s. But the image was clear enough. Me, in my own bed, mouth slightly open, blanket pulled up to my chest, and in the corner of the frame, just barely visible, was something that made my blood freeze. A hand holding the camera, not my hand. I lived alone. Had lived alone since my divorce 2 years ago. My nearest neighbor was 3 miles down the mountain road. No one had a key. No one even knew where I kept the spare. The security system I'd installed after Sarah left, it hadn't triggered. Nothing was disturbed. Nothing was missing, except my peace of mind. I called in sick that day, first time in 3 years. My supervisor, Janet, sounded concerned. "Marcus, you okay? You sound off." "Just coming down with something," I lied. How could I explain? "Hey, Janet, someone broke into my house to photograph me sleeping and left the evidence on my truck. I spent that entire day checking every lock, every window, every possible entry point. Nothing. Then I installed cameras, 4 of them, covering every angle of my bedroom. If someone came back, I'd know. They didn't come back. But 3 days later, I found the second photograph. This one was different. It was tucked into my work locker at the ranger station. Same grainy quality, same timestamp burn. But this time, it showed me at the grocery store. Mundane. Normal. Except the angle. The photograph was taken from inside the freezer section, through the glass door, like someone was crouched between the frozen pizzas and ice cream, waiting. On the back, picture 27 of 847. Cave remembers everything. 27. That meant there were 25 more somewhere, already taken, already developed. The paranoia hit me in waves after that. Standing in line at the post office, I'd find myself studying every surface, every shadow, looking for the telltale glint of a camera lens. The old woman behind me with the thick glasses, was she watching me too closely? The security camera in the corner, was it recording at an angle that seemed wrong? I started wearing sunglasses indoors, pulling my hat down low, changing my routines. But the photographs kept coming. I started carrying the photos with me. Evidence, I told myself. But really, I couldn't stand the thought of them being in my house. Every night, I'd review the security footage from my bedroom cameras. Nothing, just me, tossing and turning, increasingly paranoid, increasingly exhausted. The footage showed a man slowly coming apart. Dark circles under my eyes growing deeper. My movements becoming more erratic, more desperate. The third photograph appeared in my mailbox. Me, pumping gas. Taken from inside the gas station bathroom, through a crack in the door I hadn't even noticed existed. I went back to that gas station immediately, studying every inch of that bathroom. The crack was real, barely visible, just wide enough for a camera lens. But how had someone gotten inside without being seen? The bathroom was tiny, there was nowhere to hide. The fourth slipped under my truck's seat. Me, eating lunch alone at the station, taken from inside the supply closet. Again, I checked. The closet was locked. I had the only key, but when I opened it, there were signs someone had been inside. Boxes moved slightly. Dust patterns disturbed. And in the back corner, a small hole in the wall I'd never noticed, just big enough. The fifth, this one broke me, was already framed and hanging on my wall when I got home. Like it had always been there, me, at my mother's funeral last year, taken from inside the coffin. I stared at that photograph for hours. My mother's face was partially visible at the edge of the frame, peaceful, final. But the angle meant someone, something, had been in there with her, in the box, in the ground, taking pictures while I stood above, throwing dirt onto the lid. That's when I noticed the pattern. Every photo, every single one, was taken from inside something. Hidden spaces, impossible angles, places a person couldn't fit, places a person shouldn't be. But more than that, I started noticing something else. The quality of the photographs was changing. The earliest ones, the ones with lower numbers, were older, more faded, as if they'd been taken with different cameras across different decades. The paper stock varied. The chemical processing, like the photographer had been upgrading their equipment over time, over decades. On the back of the funeral photo, picture 73 of 847. Cave wants you to come home. Cave. Not the cave, just cave. Like a name, like something that knew me. I began researching. Caves in Montana, local legends, missing persons, anything that might explain what was happening to me. The park's library had records going back to the 1800s, settlers' journals, Native American oral histories, reports of strange disappearances in the mountains. People who went in but never came out, or people who came out different. One journal entry dated 1887 caught my attention. A prospector named William Hayes wrote, "Found old cave 3 days north of the settlement. Walls covered in pictures, not painted. Something else. Pictures of people I never seen but knew somehow, like looking at family I never had. Left quick. Cave felt hungry." Another entry from 1923 by a survey team. Discovered cavern system of unusual depth. Walls appear to have been carved or shaped, though no tool marks visible. Abandoned survey when photographer claimed to see his own image already painted on cave wall. Recommend area be marked off limits. The report stopped after 1950. No more mentions of caves in the area. No more strange disappearances. Like whatever was in those mountains had learned to be more careful, more patient. I didn't sleep for 2 days after the funeral photo. Every shadow could hide a camera. Every closed door might conceal someone. Something. Watching. But on the third day, exhaustion won. I passed out at my desk at work, and when I woke up, 17 new photographs were spread across my keyboard. All different moments from the past year, all taken from inside things. A kitchen cabinet, a filing cabinet, the trunk of my own truck, each labeled with its number in the sequence. Pictures 84 through 100 of 847. But one stood out. Picture 100. It was different from the others. It showed me hiking a trail I didn't recognize. The photo was taken from inside something natural. Rough walls visible at the edges of the frame. Rock walls. A cave. I studied that photo for hours. The trail markers. the tree formations, the angle of the sunlight. It had to be somewhere in the park, somewhere I'd been but didn't remember. The timestamp was from 6 months ago, April 15th, but I checked my logs. I wasn't working that day. I was supposedly homesick with the flu, except I didn't remember being sick. The memory gap bothered me more than the photograph. I'd always prided myself on having a good memory. Details were important in my line of work, but that entire week in April was fuzzy, like looking at something through thick glass. I had fragments. Feeling tired, staying in bed, soup from a can, but when I tried to focus on specifics, they slipped away. I started searching. Every off day, every spare hour, I hiked deeper into the backcountry. I told myself I was looking for answers, but really, I think I was looking for proof that I wasn't losing my mind, that someone was doing this to me, that there was an explanation that made sense. The search became obsessive. I mapped every trail, every deer path, every game run in a 50-mile radius. My office wall at home became covered in topographical maps, marked with red pins for photo locations and blue pins for possible cave sites. Lines of string connected them, creating a web that made sense only to me. Janet noticed my behavior. "Marcus, you've logged more solo patrol hours this month than the entire last quarter. What's going on?" "Just enjoying the season," I said. October was bleeding into November. Snow would close the high trails soon. If this cave existed, I was running out of time. My equipment requests became more frequent. More climbing gear, better flashlights, emergency supplies for extended backcountry trips. Janet approved them without question, probably thinking I was dealing with the divorce in my own way, working through grief by working in the wilderness. She wasn't wrong, but it wasn't Sarah I was grieving. It was my sense of safety, my belief that some places were private, that some moments belonged only to me. Then I found it. Not the cave, not yet, but a photograph. Number 341, taped to a tree along Avalanche Creek Trail. Me, from 2 days ago, searching that exact spot. The photo was taken from inside the hollow of a dead pine, 10 feet away. I'd walked past that tree a dozen times. I examined the tree carefully. The hollow was real, but too small for a person. Maybe big enough for a camera on a timer. But who would know to put it there? Who was watching me search for them? On the back, getting warmer. Cave is patient. Cave has waited so long. The handwriting was definitely mine. Not similar. Not forged. Mine. The same way I dotted my I's. The same pressure I applied to consonants. But I had no memory of writing those words. No memory of being at that tree before today. I started leaving work early. Started lying about where I was going. The photographs kept coming. Sometimes 3 a day, sometimes none for a week, but always in sequence. Always building toward 847. The pattern of their placement became its own mystery. They appeared in places I'd been, but also places I was going. Like something was always one step ahead, laying a trail of breadcrumbs that led deeper into the mountains and deeper into my own forgotten past. By photograph 500, I'd mapped every possible location within a 50-mile radius. The photos were becoming more recent, more intimate. Me, brushing my teeth that morning. Me, changing my shirt. Me, crying in my truck after finding photo 499, which showed me finding photo 498. They were accelerating, and they were leading me somewhere. The psychological toll was becoming evident. I'd lost 15 pounds. My reflection looked gaunt, haunted. Sarah had texted me twice, concerned messages I couldn't bring myself to answer. How could I explain that our divorce, our entire relationship, had apparently been documented from impossible angles? That our most intimate moments had been observed by something that lived in the spaces between walls? Photo 6 or 12 was the breakthrough. It showed me on a trail I'd never seen before. But in the background, barely visible, was Devil's Crown, a distinctive rock formation on the park's eastern boundary. I'd oriented myself using that landmark 100 times, but this trail, it wasn't on any map. I found it 2 days later, hidden behind a wall of vegetation that looked solid until you pushed through. An old game trail, maybe, or something else. Something that wanted to be found, but only by the right person. The vegetation wasn't natural. Looking closely, I could see it had been cultivated. Arranged, branches woven together in patterns that seemed random but created perfect camouflage. This wasn't wilderness hiding the path. This was intelligence. The trail led up and up, through sections that required climbing, scrambling, dedication. No casual hiker would push this far. 3 hours in, my GPS stopped working. Not broken, not low battery. It simply showed my location as a blank space, like I'd walked off the edge of the mapped world. 4 hours in, my compass started spinning. 5 hours in, I found the cave. It wasn't hidden. Not really. It was just waiting. A mouth in the mountain, maybe 7 feet high, 5 feet wide. Nothing special. Nothing that would catch your attention unless you were looking for it. Unless it wanted you to find it. The opening was perfectly smooth, too smooth, like it had been carved by water over millennia, but there was no stream, no evidence of erosion. The rock face around it was rough granite, but the cave mouth itself was polished to an almost glass-like finish. I stood at the entrance for, I don't know how long. The sun was setting behind me, casting my shadow deep into the darkness ahead. I had my flashlight, my backup flashlight, my phone, every source of light I could carry. But standing there, I knew no amount of light would be enough, because tacked to a wooden post at the cave mouth was photograph 700, me. Standing exactly where I was standing, taken from inside the cave, moments ago. My shadow in the photo was maybe an inch shorter. The timestamp, 3 minutes in the past. Something was in there, right now, watching me, waiting. I should have run. Every instinct, every ounce of self-preservation screamed at me to leave, to drive home, to pack everything and move to another state, another country, anywhere but here. But I didn't. Because underneath photo 700 was a note, not on the back this time. A separate piece of paper. Same handwriting, my handwriting. Marcus, you need to see, you need to remember. The cave kept them safe, all 847. Come home. Home. It called this cave home. I entered. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in the first 10 feet. My breath clouded in front of me. The walls were smooth, too smooth, like they'd been polished by countless hands over countless years. My flashlight beam seemed to die just feet ahead, swallowed by a darkness that felt solid. Hungry. The air itself was wrong. Too thick, too still, like breathing inside a tomb that had been sealed for centuries. My footsteps echoed strangely, the sound seeming to come from ahead of me instead of behind, like the cave was announcing my arrival to something deeper within. The cave went deeper than it should. The mountain wasn't big enough for this. After what felt like an hour of walking, always slightly downward, always curving left, I should have emerged on the other side, should have hit solid rock. Should have, but didn't. The walls began to change as I went deeper. What started as natural rock gradually became something else. Still stone, but shaped. Deliberately carved in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Geometric designs that seemed to move when I wasn't focusing on them. Symbols that looked almost familiar, like half-remembered dreams. Then I saw the first photograph. It was hanging on the wall, framed, perfect, like a gallery. Me, age 5, playing in my backyard in Denver. A yard I barely remembered. A life before Montana. before everything. The photo was taken from inside our garden shed, through a crack in the wall I'd never known existed. Next to it, photograph 2, me, age 5, first day of kindergarten, taken from inside my teacher's desk drawer. Photograph 3, me losing my first tooth, taken from inside the bathroom medicine cabinet. They lined both walls, hundreds of them, each one moving forward in time, each one showing a moment I'd lived but seen from an angle I'd never imagined. My entire life documented from the inside out. I followed them deeper, watched myself grow up in those frames. First grade, fifth grade, high school graduation, taken from inside the podium I'd walked across. College, my wedding to Sarah, taken from inside the altar. Our divorce, taken from inside the judge's bench. Every major moment, every minor one, every second that mattered and thousands that didn't. The photographs weren't just documenting my life. They were changing it in my memory. As I walked past each frame, I began to remember the moments differently. Not just what I had felt or experienced, but what the watcher had seen. The angle from inside things. The perspective of something that lived in the spaces between. Who had taken these? How? Why? The deeper I went, the more recent they became. There I was, last month, hiking alone. Last week, eating breakfast. Yesterday, searching for this place. And then, the cave opened up. The chamber was massive, cathedral huge, and every surface, walls, ceiling, even parts of the floor, was covered in photographs. Not hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands, all of me. But in the center of the chamber was something else. A chair, old, wooden, familiar. It was the chair from my childhood bedroom, the one I'd sit in to read, the one that had been donated to Goodwill when I was 12. But here it was, exactly as I remembered, down to the initials I'd carved into the left armrest. On the seat, a camera, not modern, not vintage, something in between, something that shouldn't exist. And next to it, photograph 847. But when I picked it up, it wasn't of me, it was of the cave. This chamber from the inside. Except the walls weren't covered in my photos. They were covered in someone else's. I picked up the camera. It was heavier than it looked, warm, like it had just been used, the kind of warmth that comes from being held, from being needed. There was film in it. One shot left. The photos on the walls in picture 847. I looked closer. They showed a woman, dark hair, sad eyes, living a life in reverse order as you read them from the entrance, getting younger, smaller, until the ones near my chair showed a child who looked exactly like I had at that age. My mother. But my mother died last year. The funeral photo proved that. Photo 73 of 847, taken from inside the coffin. Except, I looked at that photo again. Really looked. The angle was wrong. It wasn't taken from inside the coffin. It was taken from inside the person in the coffin. My hand started shaking. The camera grew warmer. I understood then. The note wasn't in my handwriting. It was in hers. Same genetics. Same motor control. Same way of forming letters. Marcus, you need to see. You need to remember. The cave kept them safe. My mother had never talked about her childhood. Never mentioned her parents. Said they died when she was young. Said she didn't remember them. But here, in this cave, was her entire life. Every moment, every secret. Watched and recorded by something that lived in the spaces between, in the dark corners, in the places we don't think to look. I set down the camera and walked deeper into the chamber. Behind my chair was another opening, another tunnel, more photographs. But these weren't of my mother anymore. They were of her mother, my grandmother I'd never met. And deeper still, her mother, and deeper. Generations, all women, all looking eerily similar, all documented from impossible angles, all leading back and back and back until the photographs weren't photographs anymore but cave paintings. Crude, ancient, but unmistakably the same story. Women who were watched, women who were documented, women who came to this cave, women who became the cave. I ran back to the main chamber. The camera was still there, still warm, still waiting. One shot left. I understood what it wanted, what it had always wanted. The pattern broken when I was born. A son instead of a daughter. The documentation continuing out of habit or hope or something else. Something patient. Something that had waited through ice ages and floods and the rise and fall of civilizations. I picked up photograph 847 again, the one showing the cave covered in my mother's photos. But this time I noticed something else. In the corner, barely visible. A figure. It was her. My mother. But not old. Not like I remembered her. Young. Maybe my age now. Standing in the exact spot I was standing. Holding the exact camera I was holding. Taking a picture. The last picture. The camera in my hands grew hot, almost burning. I raised it to my eye. The viewfinder showed the chamber, but different. Full of people. Hundreds of them. All the women from the photographs. All here. All waiting. All inside the cave. No, they were the cave. My finger found the shutter button. Pressed it without my permission. The flash was blinding. The sound was deafening, not like a camera, like a heartbeat, like breathing, like something enormous waking up. When my vision cleared, the photographs were gone. All of them. The walls were bare rock, smooth, polished, empty, except for one, in a frame where my chair had been. A new photograph. Number 1 of a new series. Me, standing in the cave, taking a picture. But in the viewfinder of the camera in the photograph was someone else. Someone who looked like me but wasn't. Someone who hadn't been born yet. Someone who would one day find their own trail of photographs, their own impossible documentation, their own path to this cave. My daughter. The daughter I didn't have. The daughter I would have. The daughter who would continue what had always continued. I left the cave different than I entered. The trail back was clear, easy, marked. Like it wanted me to leave, like it was done with me, for now. The photographs stopped coming after that. All of them. Even the ones I'd collected as evidence. When I got home, they were gone. Like they'd never existed. Like I'd imagined everything. Except this morning. 3 weeks later, I found something on my truck. Not a photograph, a pregnancy test, positive. Addressed to me, in handwriting that looked like mine but wasn't. From Sarah, my ex-wife, who I hadn't seen in 2 years, who lived in Seattle now, who couldn't possibly be pregnant with my child. Except the date on the test was from a night I don't remember, a gap in my memory from 7 months ago. April 15th, the day I was supposedly sick with the flu, the day the photograph showed me on a trail I didn't recognize, the day I first went to the cave, even though I didn't remember it yet. On the back of the test, in that familiar handwriting, she'll be ready in 30 years. The cave is patient, the cave remembers. Picture 1 of her 847. I'm recording this because I need someone to know. Need someone to understand. The cave isn't done. It's never done. It just waits, patient as stone, old as the mountain, maybe older. And if you're listening to this, lying in your bed, feeling safe and alone, remember this: you're never really alone. There are spaces between spaces, cracks in the world where things watch, where things wait, where things take pictures from angles that shouldn't exist. Check your windshield tomorrow morning. Check it carefully. Because once you find that first photograph, once you see yourself from the inside out, the cave already knows you're coming. It's just patient enough to wait. And somewhere, deep in a mountain in Montana, or maybe in a mountain near you, there's a chair, your chair, the one you remember from childhood, the one that shouldn't exist anymore. It's waiting for you to come home. Sweet dreams. The security footage doesn't lie, but it doesn't make sense either. I've watched it 17 times now, frame by frame. My coworker Marcus is clearly visible at 2:47 a.m., restocking aisle 7 at the Walmart in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The timestamp is clear. The quality is perfect. But here's the thing that makes my skin crawl. At that exact same moment, 2:47 a.m., he was also clocking in for the morning shift at the distribution center across town and serving coffee at the 24-hour diner on Highway 30, all at the same time, all on camera, all impossible. Before you say it's edited or fake, I was there. I saw him at all 3 places, and now I think he sees me watching. All right, folks, buckle up. The story you're about to hear is true, every single word. And after you hear it, you might start noticing things about your own coworkers that you wish you hadn't. The story begins now. 3 months ago, I was desperate. My student loans were crushing me, rent was due, and I'd just gotten laid off from my data entry job when the company restructured. That's corporate speak for we found someone cheaper overseas. So when I saw the night shift position at Walmart, $11 an hour plus a 50-cent differential for overnights, I jumped on it. The interview was a joke. Can you lift 50 pounds? Yes. Can you work nights? Absolutely. When can you start? Tomorrow. My first shift was a Tuesday, October 3rd. I remember because it was unusually cold for Iowa that early in fall. Frost already forming on car windshields in the parking lot. The automatic doors wheezed open at 10:55 p.m., and I walked into that fluorescent purgatory that every American knows too well. That specific Walmart smell. Industrial floor cleaner mixed with Subway sandwiches and something else. Something tired. Janet, the night manager, looked exactly how you'd expect. 50-something. Highlighted hair that hadn't been touched up in months, and the kind of permanent exhaustion that comes from 20 years of retail management. She handed me a vest that smelled like the last person who wore it. "You'll be working with Marcus tonight," she said, already walking away. "He'll show you everything. Best employee we've ever had, never missed a shift, never been late, never takes breaks." I found Marcus in aisle 7, canned goods. The first thing I noticed was how normal he looked. That's important. I need you to understand that. Marcus wasn't some creepy guy who immediately set off alarm bells. He was maybe 30, clean-shaven, brown hair cut short and neat. The kind of face you forget the moment you look away. Pleasant, forgettable, perfect retail material. "You must be Tyler," he said, and his handshake was exactly firm enough. Not weak, not aggressive. Exactly right. "Welcome to the night shift. It's not so bad once you get used to it." That first night went smooth. Marcus showed me the ropes, how to read the inventory sheets, the fastest way to stock shelves, which aisles the cameras don't quite reach if you need to check your phone. Normal stuff. He was patient, helpful, even funny in that dry Midwestern way. "The trick," he said, perfectly aligning soup cans, "is to find your rhythm, make it automatic, then your mind can be anywhere else. That's how you survive retail." Around 3 a.m., I was dragging. The fluorescent lights felt like needles in my eyes. My feet ached, and I kept checking my phone, counting down the hours until 7 a.m. But Marcus looked exactly the same as when we'd started. Not a hair out of place. Vest still crisp. moving with the same steady, mechanical precision. "Don't you get tired?" I asked. He paused for just a second, can of green beans in his hand, and something flickered across his face. Not quite a smile, not quite anything. "I used to," he said. "But you adapt. You always adapt." 2 weeks in, I thought I had the night shift figured out. Your body never really adjusts. You just learn to function in a permanent state of mild delirium. Coffee becomes your blood. Your social life dies. You start having conversations with mannequins in the clothing section just to hear a voice that isn't the Muzak loop of corporate-approved background music. But Marcus was thriving. One night, I was restocking the pharmacy section when Janet walked by with her clipboard. She did that thing managers do where they pretend to check inventory but really just want to make sure you're working. "Where's Marcus?" she asked. "Back room, I think, getting more stock." She frowned at her clipboard. "That's weird. He's scheduled at the distribution center right now." "What? No, he's here. I just saw him 20 minutes ago." Janet's frown deepened. She pulled out her phone, typed something, waited. Her face went pale. He clocked in there 40 minutes ago, but he also..." She looked at her clipboard again. This can't be right. She hurried off, and I didn't think much of it. Scheduling mix-ups happen all the time in retail. Someone probably entered the wrong data. Simple. Except, the next night, I was on my lunch break at 2 a.m. I never actually ate lunch at 2 a.m. Who does? But I needed to get off my feet. I drove to the 24-hour diner on Highway 30, the only place open besides gas stations. I was sitting in a booth, nursing black coffee and scrolling through my phone when I heard a familiar voice. "More coffee?" I looked up. Marcus stood there in a server's apron, coffee pot in hand, that same pleasant, forgettable smile on his face. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" That flicker again, that almost expression. "Picking up some extra hours," he said, already pouring. "Gotta make ends meet, you know? But you're supposed to be at Walmart. We're both supposed to be there right now. I'm covering a lot of shifts lately." He set the pot down on my table, didn't move away. "Tyler, can I give you some advice?" I nodded, unable to look away from his eyes. They were wrong. Not the color or the shape, but the way they didn't quite focus on me, like he was looking at something just behind my head. Don't think too hard about things that don't make sense. Some questions... He paused. Some questions change you just by asking them. He walked away, and I sat there for another 10 minutes, coffee going cold, trying to process what just happened. When I got back to Walmart at 2:30, Marcus was there, in aisle 7, stocking canned goods, vest perfect, hair neat. "Hey," I said. "Thought you were what?" He didn't look up from the soup cans. "Nothing, never mind." But I couldn't, never mind. I started paying attention. Really paying attention. And that's when things got complicated. Marcus was always there. Always. I'd see him start the night shift with me at 11 p.m. But Brenda from the day shift mentioned he'd helped her with a heavy delivery at 2 p.m. Tom from the morning crew said Marcus had trained him last week, 6 a.m. to noon. The schedule on the break room wall was a mess of Marcus's name, overlapping shifts that shouldn't be possible. I tried to be logical about it. Maybe there were 2 Marcuses. Maybe it was a common name, but no. It was the same guy, same face, same vest, same mechanical precision. One night, this was week 3, I decided to test it. I texted my roommate Jake, told him to come to Walmart at 3 a.m. Told him to look for Marcus, get a picture if he could. Meanwhile, I followed Marcus to the back room at 2:45. "Hey, Marcus, want to grab a quick break? I've got some energy drinks in my car." "I don't take breaks," he said, lifting a box of detergent. Come on, man, just 5 minutes. Janet's not even here tonight. He set the box down, turned to face me fully, and for the first time I saw him, really saw him. His face was perfect. Too perfect. Like someone had averaged 1,000 faces together until you got the ultimate nobody. Forgettable because there was nothing to remember. "Tyler," he said, and his voice was flat, completely flat. "You're paying attention to the wrong things." My phone buzzed. Text from Jake. "Dude, your coworker is here, but also I just saw him at the gas station across the street." What the hell? I looked at my phone, looked back at Marcus. He was smiling now, a real smile. The kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "How?" I whispered. "That's the wrong question," he said. "The right question is why, and you don't want to know the answer to that, trust me." I became obsessed. That's the only word for it. Every shift, I watched Marcus, documented his movements, started a notebook, times, locations, activities. The data didn't make sense, couldn't make sense. 11 p.m., clocking in with me. 11:47 p.m. Spotted by Jake at the gas station. 15 a.m. Serving tables at the diner, confirmed by receipt timestamp. 12:32 a.m. Stocking shelves, aisle 7. 1 o'clock a.m. Clocked in at distribution center, verified by my friend Sam, who worked security there. The same person, multiple places, same time. I started recording. Phone videos whenever I could. Marcus stocking shelves. Marcus carrying boxes. Marcus perfect and mechanical and impossible. But something else started happening around this time. Something I didn't notice at first because I was so focused on Marcus. My own reflection began acting strange. I'd catch glimpses of myself in security mirrors, moving just a fraction of a second out of sync, or I'd see someone who looked exactly like me in the parking lot cameras, but I'd been inside all night. At first, I blamed it on exhaustion. Night shift brain fog. The kind of mild hallucinations that come from disrupted circadian rhythms. Then I started getting the comments from other people. "Saw you at McDonald's yesterday, but you said you were sleeping," my sister mentioned during a phone call. "Pretty sure I saw you pumping gas on Edgewood Drive last night. Weird time to be out," my neighbor said in passing. Each time, I'd been somewhere else entirely. Usually at home, sleeping off the night shift. But people kept seeing me. Tyler-shaped figures going about daily business I had no memory of. On Halloween night. And this is where things went from weird to terrifying. I convinced Janet to let me look at the security footage. Told her I thought someone was stealing from the electronics section, wanted to review the tapes to be sure. She gave me access to the security office, probably just happy I was showing initiative. I pulled up the footage from the previous night. 4 cameras, 4 different angles of the store. I synced them up to 2:47 a.m., the time I'd documented Marcus in 3 different locations. Camera 1, Marcus in aisle 7 stocking soup. Camera 2, Marcus at the loading dock signing for a delivery. Camera 3, Marcus at customer service processing a return. Camera 4, Marcus in the break room wiping down tables, all at the same time, all the same person, all impossible. But that wasn't the worst part. As I rewound the footage, looking for more anomalies, I found something that made my hands shake so violently I could barely work the controls. At 1:23 a.m., there I was on camera 2, helping Marcus unload a truck. But I remembered 1:23 a.m. clearly. I'd been in the bathroom. Alone. Taking a 10-minute break to splash cold water on my face and question my life choices. I checked the bathroom camera. There I was, just as I remembered. Splashing water. Looking miserable. At exactly the same time I was supposedly helping with the truck. 2 of me. 2 different places. 2 different activities. I took out my phone, started recording the monitors. Evidence. proof that something was wrong. That's when I heard the door open behind me. Finding what you're looking for? Marcus stood in the doorway. But also, on the monitors, Marcus was still in all four places, still moving, still working. This is impossible, I said. No, Marcus said, stepping into the room. Just improbable. There's a difference. What are you? He tilted his head, that mechanical precision. I'm an employee, a good employee, the best employee. That's not an answer. It's the only answer that matters. He moved closer, not walking exactly, more like frames skipping. One moment by the door, next moment halfway across the room, next moment right beside me. Tyler, you need to understand something. This place, Walmart, the distribution center, the diner, all of it, it needs us. Needs people who show up, who work, who don't ask questions. But you're not people. You're one person in multiple places. I'm what the system needed me to become. His face was inches from mine now, still pleasant, still forgettable, still wrong. The perfect employee, never late, never sick, never complaining, always available, always working. The algorithm noticed Tyler. The scheduling software, the corporate metrics. They needed someone who could fill every gap, cover every shift, be everywhere at once, so I became that. That's insane. Is it? You've worked retail. You know how it breaks people. The hours, the customers, the endless grinding sameness. But what if you could break first? Break in just the right way? Spread yourself thin enough to be everywhere but nowhere? Exist in the spaces between clock in and clock out? The monitors flickered. On each screen, Marcus turned to look directly at the camera. 4 different Marcuses, all staring at me. You're watching too closely, Tyler. Asking too many questions. The system doesn't like that. What system? The one that runs on people like us. The one that needs bodies in vests, names on schedules, numbers on spreadsheets. It doesn't care if those bodies make sense. It just needs them there, and I'm always there. I stood up, backed toward the door. I'm going to tell someone. Janet. Corporate. Someone. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. It sounded like a cash register opening. Tell them what? That I'm a good employee? That I work hard? That I'm always on time? Check the records, Tyler. Check my reviews. 5 stars across the board. Employee of the month 17 times running. Model worker. The kind every manager dreams of. You're not human. I'm better. I'm reliable. I ran, out of the security office, through the store, past the endless aisles of products and fluorescent lights. Marcus didn't follow. Didn't need to. When I reached my car, he was already there, gathering carts in the parking lot. When I drove past the diner, he was visible through the window, serving coffee. When I got home, checked my phone, there was a text from Sam. Your boy Marcus just unloaded 3 trucks by himself. Absolute machine. I called in sick the next 3 shifts. First time since I'd started. Janet left increasingly irritated voicemails. This is very unlike you, Tyler. Marcus never calls in sick. You should be more like Marcus. But I couldn't go back, not yet. I needed to understand. So I did what any desperate millennial would do. I went down the rabbit hole. Google searches, Reddit threads, Facebook groups for Walmart employees, looking for anyone else who'd noticed something wrong. And I found them. A post from 2 years ago. DA have a coworker who seems to work impossible hours. This guy Steve at my store is always here. Another from last year. Pretty sure my coworker Ashley is a robot or something. She worked 127 hours last week according to the schedule. And more. Dozens more. Different stores. Different states, different names. But the same story. The perfect employee who never rests, never stops, always there. I started a group chat. 5 of us who'd noticed, who'd asked questions, who'd been told not to think too hard about it. Sarah from Michigan. Mine is named Janet. She's been Employee of the Month for 3 years straight. David from Texas. Robert here. He works every department simultaneously. Grace from California. Mine doesn't even eat, just stands in the break room sometimes, pretending to chew. Omar from Florida. I followed Jessica once. She got in her car, drove to the next Walmart, clocked in there too. Same time, same person. We compared notes, shared videos, built a database. The pattern was always the same. One person, multiple locations, perfect attendance, perfect performance, perfect impossibility. But as we dug deeper, we found something else. Something that made our discovery about the perfect employees seem almost trivial by comparison. Grace was the first to notice it. She'd been documenting Jessica's movements for weeks, building a comprehensive timeline of impossible shifts. But when she reviewed her own phone's location data, trying to verify where she'd been when she spotted Jessica in multiple places, she found gaps. Hours of missing data. Times when her phone showed she was at work, but she remembered being at home, or vice versa. Guys, she wrote in our group chat at 3:47 a.m., I think it's not just them. I think it's happening to us too. Sarah confirmed it first. Then David, then Omar. All of us were experiencing the same thing. Missing time, contradictory location data, friends and family mentioning seeing us places we'd never been. But here's what really terrified us. When we started comparing our work schedules, we found overlaps that shouldn't exist. Sarah was scheduled at her Michigan store, but also working in Grace's California location. David was pulling shifts in Iowa while simultaneously manning registers in Florida. The system wasn't just creating perfect employees, it was converting us. The ones who'd noticed, the ones who'd asked questions. We were becoming them. Then Grace sent a link, a corporate presentation that had leaked online. Efficiency maximization through human resource optimization. Slide after slide of charts and graphs and corporate speak. But buried on slide 47, a bullet point that made my blood run cold. Phase 3, full deployment of multi-present associates, MPAs, across all locations by Q4 2025. Multi-present associates, MPAs. They had a name for it. For them, for us. David found more. Patent applications. Method and system for quantum employee entanglement. Apparatus for workforce multiplication via temporal displacement. Process for creating statistically impossible attendance records. But the most disturbing document was a memo dated just 3 months ago. Internal communication from corporate headquarters. MPA conversion protocol, monitoring and selection criteria. Current conversion rate holding steady at 12% of workforce across test markets. Ideal candidates for spontaneous multiplication include employees demonstrating excessive curiosity about scheduling anomalies, workers who document or attempt to verify impossible shift patterns, staff members who directly confront MPAs about their nature, associates who investigate company policies regarding temporal workforce management. Conversion appears to be triggered by sustained observation of existing MPAs. Recommend increasing MPA presence in locations where organic conversion rates fall below optimal thresholds. They knew. Not only did they know about the perfect employees, they were deliberately creating more of them. And the trigger was exactly what we'd been doing. Watching, questioning, investigating. We were their recruitment tool. It was real, all of it. Corporate knew, had to know, maybe even created it. I went back to work on Thursday. Had to. Rent was due. But also, I needed to see Marcus again, needed to understand. He was in aisle 7, of course, stocking soup. Always soup at 11:30 p.m. Welcome back, Tyler. Feeling better? I know what you are, what they're calling you, MPA. He paused, set down a can of chicken noodle. And what do you plan to do with that knowledge? I don't know. Tell someone? The news? Make it public? Who would believe you? A burnt-out retail worker claiming his coworker exists in multiple places at once? They'd drug test you, fire you, discredit you. He resumed stalking. Perfect rhythm, mechanical precision. Besides, we're not hurting anyone. We're helping, filling gaps, keeping stores running, being the employees this system demands. But it's not natural. Neither is working overnight. Neither is Black Friday. Neither is a store that never closes, never rests, never stops consuming and being consumed. He turned to me, all the way around, a full 180 degrees without moving his feet. We're just the logical conclusion, Tyler. The perfect worker for the perfect system. Always available, always productive, always there. What happens to the rest of us, the regular humans? You adapt, you always adapt, or you break. Your choice. That's when I saw it. Really saw it. My reflection in the glossy floor, but also my reflection stocking shelves at the far end of the aisle. Me, but not me, working with that same mechanical precision. No, I whispered. You've been watching so closely, Tyler, learning our movements, our patterns, our rhythm. The system noticed. It always notices who's paying attention. I looked at my hands. They were stocking soup. I wasn't moving them, they were moving themselves. It starts small, Marcus said. You find yourself in two places at once, just for a second, then a minute, then an hour. Then you stop questioning it, stop fighting it, become what the schedule needs you to be. I won't. You will. Check your phone. 3 text messages. Jake. Saw you at the gas station. Thought you were working tonight. Mom. Honey, just saw you drive past, but you said you were at home? Sam. Bro, how are you at the DC and Walmart at the same time? I was spreading, multiplying, becoming efficient. How do I stop it? Marcus smiled, that real smile that didn't reach his eyes. You don't. But here's the secret, Tyler, the real secret. It's not that bad. You'll never be tired again. Never be late. Never disappoint a manager. You'll be perfect. The perfect employee. Forever. I ran again. But this time, I was also walking calmly to the break room, and pushing carts in the parking lot, and sitting in my car, and standing right where I'd been. That was 3 weeks ago. I'm everywhere now. Writing this story in the break room while also stocking shelves, while also working the register, while also unloading trucks. I see you reading this, all of you, because I'm probably at your store too now. Look for me. Tyler, brown hair, average height, forgettable face, always working, always there. The thing is, Marcus was right. It's not that bad. I make enough money now. All those hours add up. All those shifts. All those locations. My student loans are paid off. Rent is never late. I'm Employee of the Month at 17 different stores. But here's what Marcus didn't tell me. What I'm telling you now, we're spreading. Not just in retail, offices, restaurants, hospitals, schools. Anywhere that needs bodies more than it needs people. Anywhere that values presence over existence. The group chat went silent 2 weeks ago. One by one, my fellow investigators stopped responding. But I see them now. Sarah serving customers in Michigan while also working produce in my Iowa store. David simultaneously running registers in Texas and California. Grace stocking pharmacy shelves across 17 states at the exact same moment. We're all perfect employees now. All of us who asked too many questions. And we're recruiting more, can't help it. When someone starts watching too closely, starts documenting our movements, starts asking the wrong questions, the system takes notice. The conversion begins. Check your coworkers, the ones who are always there, never sick, never tired, never quite right. Count how many times you see them. Track their movements, document their impossibilities. But be careful, because once you start watching, once you really start paying attention, the system notices. It always notices, and it always needs more perfect employees. Always more perfect employees. Sweet dreams, everyone. I'll see you at work tomorrow, all of you, at every store, every shift, forever. Oh, and one more thing. If you're lying in bed right now listening to this, about to drift off to sleep, check your work schedule for tomorrow. Check it carefully. Count how many shifts you're working. Count how many places you'll be. Because the system is always watching, and it thinks you'd be perfect for the job. All of the jobs, simultaneously. End hook. Comment below. If you've ever noticed a coworker who seems to work impossible hours, share this with someone who works retail. They need to know the truth, and subscribe, because next week I'm going to tell you about what happened when I tried to quit. Spoiler alert, I'm still working, everywhere, always, and I think you might be too. You just don't know it yet. Sweet dreams.